to the most difficult passage in the scriptures on marriage, which is 1 Corinthians 7. Everyone stays away from it. I'm going to go right at it. But it says, God said that it's not good that man should be alone. The word in Hebrew is bod, where we would get the word bad. It's not good that man should be alone. So, what does that mean? It means that if you're single, God's heart for you is to not be alone. You have to really trust God's heart for you. God wants good for you more than you want good for yourself. As a father, maybe you didn't have a father like that. God as a father knows exactly what you need. Adam never even prayed for a wife. God knows what you need before you ask. And it's the Father's pleasure and delight and joy to provide for you exactly what you need in that season. And one of the things that you have to become convinced of is that God has a purpose, a place, and a person for everyone. When you are convinced of that, it's easier to become patient and to prepare yourself and to wait if you are convinced that God has something and someone and somewhere for you. If people don't know what they're suffering for, they won't be willing to suffer long. But when people, without revelation, it says people cast off restraint. And when you have a revelation of what's coming, it's easier to restrain yourself and say, okay, I'm going to wait, I'm going to be patient, because God is doing something, God is working. And so I don't know if I've ever even communicated this to some of you guys, but when I came back to the Lord, I came back to Jesus because my family was going to get divorced. My mom and dad were going to get divorced. And the story is as follows. I mean, I have permission to share this, but this is as real as it gets. I was 18, 19, probably 19 and change. And at the time, I was on the way out to dinner with my girlfriend. I was dating a Puerto Rican girl. She was a model, very pretty girl. And we were driving, and we're getting ready to go out to dinner. And I see my dad's Jaguar in a local strip club. And when you see a Jaguar with a fish on it, I don't got no fish on my car, because if you see me drive, you might think I stole the car. So you already know I lost my license as a pastor, so you already know. Poor Sarah. Our insurance was like a Range Rover payment. But anyway, so that's another story. But imagine if you're so dumb that your insurance is more than your car payment. Now that is dumb. So I've done some dumb stuff. Thank you for your patience. And so I'm driving, and I see his car there, and I'm mad. I got angry white man syndrome. I am mad because I'm like, how you going to do that to my mom? My mom is like, she was like a saint, you know, like a tough saint. Like, she's putting oil on everything and stuff like that. And I remember one time I was a kid, I was on coke, I was on drugs, I was totally high. I was high. And I went and I laid in my bed, and immediately I got sober, because she was laying on my bed crying out to God in prayer. So I mean, I was mad at my dad. And so I picked him up, and he's a little guy. I picked him up. I was going to punch him in his face. I was so angry with my dad. And she grabbed me, this girl grabbed me. She goes, don't do that. You'll regret it for the rest of your life. So I took my dad home, and I heard my mom say, I'm done. I'm going to get a divorce. I'm going to serve Jesus. That's it. I'm done. And I never heard that word in my house once. You know, we grew up in a Christian home. You know, things went awry when I went astray. I brought the whole devil to my house. And bless you. And so anyway, I got on my knees. I threw the girl out. I got on my knees. Sometimes you intuitively know what you need to do, even before you know what you need to do. So I threw her out, and I got on my knees, and I said, don't make my family another statistic. I said, I'll live for you. I'll go to the ends of the earth for you. And if I have to, I'll die for you, not my family. And this was a point in my life where I had no remorse for human life. And I'm not going to say a lot, but I'm just going to say I did not have remorse for human life. So you can handle that how you want to handle that. But my conscience was very, very damaged. But there was one area of sensitivity, and that was my family. That was a constant thing in my life that I grew up with. I didn't grow up with a crazy family. They were really saved. I mean, there was no hypocrisy in my home. And until I brought the devil in there, everything was fine. But here's the thing. Things were not really fine because there was undealt with things. And they came. My dad, he'll tell you, he's a straightforward guy. You know that. He walked with God for 13 years. They sold their business. They sold everything. They were all in for the kingdom. They used to work for T.D. Jakes' spiritual father. I mean, they sold a successful business. They were all in for the kingdom. So I grew up seeing miracles. I grew up being around people of God. I grew up seeing everything, miracle stuff that's normal to me. Provision, seeing money in a bank account that wasn't there, all types of stuff. Normal. I grew up in that. But he never dealt with stuff. Yeah. So when I went out into the world, that came for him. So it's possible to walk with the Lord 13 years blamelessly. No drugs, no sex outside of marriage, no shady stuff, straight. I'm talking about straight, like real straight. For 13 years with something simmering. And the right situation, the perfect storm, will bring all of it up and come for you. So this is why what Cherie and Arnold is saying is so essential. So I'm not trying to air out my father's dirty laundry. I have his permission to share this. This is not dishonoring. This is part of the testimony. God heard my cry that day, and he turned my whole family, gave my mother a word. The word was fulfilled in the church, in the early season of the church. And we served the Lord together, which is supernatural. And so that was like, so I have within me a deep desire for family and for marriages and a burden for pastors. Yeah. See? Because they're suffering. The suicide rate is growing among pastors. 95% of pastors who start out as pastors do not retire as pastors. You have a higher chance being a Navy SEAL, doing 5 tours in Iraq, than being a pastor. And that's in America, which is the richest country in the world. So just multiply that times poverty, times persecution, times the struggle, and you have a better chance of climbing the Empire State Building with no shoes on. Yeah. And there's white people that do that. It's like someone's climbing the side of a building with no rope. That's a white guy. So anyway, so I have this thing for family because family is an instrument of healing. A real family is something that has the power to absorb dysfunction. That's what God does. God says, welcome to the kingdom, welcome to the family. There's a seat for you at the table, but in the kingdom we do things like this. In this house we do things like this. So when there's a corporate identity in a family, they're able to demonstrate what healthy family looks like, which is when people come into a church, they should be encountering not an organization, although it's good to be organized. They should be encountering a family. This is a very, very important thing. They're not encountering an event. It's not like an organization on a chart. No, it's a family, and a family has a father and a mother, and that family is by God's design intended to procreate, and the kingdom is an adoption agency. So whether you're procreating, adopting, both, that is an important part of the plan of God. And so anyway, even when Jesus talked about the kingdom, he said the kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king that made a wedding for his son. So the whole kingdom operates based on the love the Father has for the Son and the Father's desire for his Son to have a bride. That's how the kingdom operates. The motives of the kingdom are the Father's love for his Son. Mm-hmm. And so then we get brought into that as the people of God, and submitting to Christ and is just actually a privilege. I mean, many people live submitted to the devil their whole life and they think they're free. Mm. And he turns them out and puts them on Instagram. Yeah. And you think that you're free, but it's a shame. And one day your kids are going to see that. You know, that's not. So anyway, 1 Corinthians 7, this is the most difficult passage here. Here we go. Now concerning the things of which you wrote to me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Nevertheless, because of sexual morality, let each man have his own wife, and let each woman have her own husband. So over there's an idiom there, and when it says don't touch your wife, don't touch a woman, it's talking about not having sex. It's not talking about don't hug someone, but it's talking about that. Now, here, how do I know that? Because in verse 2, he says, nevertheless, because of sexual immorality, let each man have his own wife, and let each woman have her own husband. What does that mean? It means that verses 1 is defined clearly in verses 2 and 3. I've told you this many times. The Bible interprets the Bible. This is a very important truth. The greatest commentaries on the Gospels are not commentaries, they're the epistles. What are the epistles? The epistles are the apostles working the life of Christ and the life of the gospel into the corporate church and addressing the real problems that exist within the church. The book of Corinthians is the most gifted, wealthy, and immoral church in the whole Bible, which is like us. Okay. Let each husband render to his wife the affection due her, and likewise also the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise the husband does not have authority over his own body, the wife does. Do not deprive one another except with consent for a time, that you may give yourselves to fasting and prayer and come together again, so that Satan does not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. This is a very, very important scripture. I'm going to tell you something, and if you're married, you have to pray together, eat together, and sleep together. Now you may think, oh, why is he saying that? That's not important. Let me tell you something. This is a major problem, okay? A major problem. When I got married, you know what my spiritual father said? Make sure you have sex with your wife. I don't care about revival and all that other stuff. Make sure you have sex with your wife. That's what he said to me. You know, and that's an old man talking to a young man, and a guy who's been married longer than I've been alive. You know, so if you think that this is some sort of a waste of breath, you're not cognizant of the reality, because now watch this. The wife does not have authority over her own body. He doesn't. What does that mean? It means that we belong to one another. So the only reason there should be a breach in our sexual life is if we say, let's talk practical. Let's talk real life. You're married. You have kids. You have schedules. You're out 2 or 3 nights a week. You say, we're going to have sex Tuesday night, Friday night, and Sunday night, let's just say. and you say, you know what, Sunday night, we're not going to have sex tonight. We're going to spend that hour or 30 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever that is for you. We're going to spend that time praying and fasting. And we have consent to make a sacrifice for this physical thing because we have a spiritual priority. And the word here used in the Greek is the word kairos. So when you administer self-control and you press pause on that, you can expect a kairos moment. But that has to be with the consent of the other person. This is very important. Sex in a marriage is not a reward, it's a responsibility. Self-giving love is about giving love to the other person and vice versa. This is a very, very important part of marriage. Paul says that if you don't do that, you are creating space for Satan to tempt the other. So you say, well, why does he struggle with porn? How many times do you have sex a week? And here's the thing. Let's say he struggles with porn or she struggles with porn. Now the propensity is now, okay, you have a struggle. What do I do in my natural? Now that you have a struggle, I don't want to move toward you. Now I want to pull back from you because you're nasty. You're looking at the nasty thing. You're doing the nasty. And now I'm not attracted to you because you're over there doing the nasty. Okay? Now what happens? More separation. The more separation, the more space, the more room for temptation. See, so if you continue, let's just continue. There's so much here, but this is, okay. But I say this as a concession, not as a commandment, for I wish that all men were even as I myself, but each one has his own gift from God, one in this manner and another in that. But I say to the unmarried and to the widows, it is good for them if they remain even as I am. But if they cannot exercise self-control, let them marry, for it is better to marry than burn with passion. Let me explain the context. If you are what Jesus talked about as a eunuch for the kingdom, Daniel was a eunuch for the kingdom, well, because he was castrated. So he had no future. So God showed him the future prophetically. Okay? So if you were castrated because of slavery, then you can be a eunuch for the kingdom. If you are a eunuch for the kingdom, meaning you choose to be celibate, that means that you better be walking on water. You better be a super apostle, preaching the gospel in like Afghanistan, Pakistan, or some stand of unreached people, and you better be walking on water. If not, you're going to be playing with fire. So it's very rare that someone can say, I'm a eunuch for the kingdom of God. So if you have no sexual desires within you, then you either have a problem, seriously, you're either demented and have a problem, or you are called to be a eunuch for the kingdom of God. But you cannot be married and be a eunuch for the kingdom of God. I mean, that's not healthy, man. So anyway. I mean, you got to say these things. So now to the married, I command, yet not I, but the Lord. Uh-oh. Listen to him. He's going to say it's me talking and the Lord talking. So this is very, okay. A wife is not to depart from her husband, but even if she does, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband. And a husband is not to divorce his wife, but to the rest, I, not the Lord, say, if any brother has a wife who does not believe and she is willing to live with him, let him not divorce her. And a woman who has a husband who does not believe, if he is willing to live with her, let her not divorce him. In other words, let's just say you're both unsaved, right? This happens. And then one of them gets saved. Now, it can be easy to want to leave them because you're looking at, let's say with a woman, now you're looking at a man who does not possess the ability to lead you. Why? Because he's lost. Yeah. So how can you follow someone who's lost? This is a major thing. So for people who marry unequally yoked, you are willfully signing up to torture yourself. Because you're going to be in you're going to be yoked to someone that is opposed to all of the plans that God has for you. So our story, Sarah and I's story, is before we are even married, before I even kissed her, before I even touched her, we were already partnering together for the purposes of the kingdom. So that was Jesus as the foundation, was before anything. So the blessing that flows from her to me, and maybe sometimes from me to her, is because Jesus was first. Okay, so that's a very, very important thing. So our battle was not with each other. Our battle was with the outside world. Right? So if you are not married, do not engage in a marriage where the primary battle is the person you marry. I mean, get healthy, get mature, get free, and then what happens is you will attract what you're like. If you're a serious woman of God, you will attract a serious man of God. If you are serious about serving the Lord, you will attract someone who is serious about serving the Lord. And another thing too, Pastor Jason Alvarez says this, you will never attract what you attack. You will never attract what you, and this is people, they attack prosperity, they attack anyone that has joy, anyone that has favor, anyone that has blessing, and they're miserable, and the person with favor is not thinking about them. Okay. For unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Otherwise, your children would be unclean, but now they are holy. I lived with this. What do I mean? My parents got saved. They were saved. We grew up in the things of God. I turned to the world. My dad, he says, I had undealt with stuff. I turned to the world. My mom, she didn't turn to another man. She turned to God. God sanctified my brother and I because of her prayers and her lifestyle. So even if things don't go your way, who you turn to will determine if the situation turns or if you get swept under the rug and you just become another statistic.
Come on.
So even if things are not going your way, if you turn to God, things can change.
Yep.
One person who's willing to stand is a majority. Is a majority. One person that has their feet planted and says spine up and chest up and shoulders back. One person willing to stand for God and willing to stand on the truth is a majority. So this is something. So it's possible that if you are married to someone who is not a believer, that they can be sanctified and reached through your life. Peter says that they will not be reached through your words, but through your conduct, through your behavior. See, but we try to change people with our words, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. All right. Let's continue here. But if the unbeliever departs, let him depart. A brother or a sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God has called us to peace. So what is that saying? It's saying that let's say you become a believer. This happens all over the world. This happens all over the world. People become a believer, their wife leaves them. Their husband leaves them. You get saved in an Islamic country, it's not like, oh, poor little Johnny who's a drug addict. Now Johnny's going to be able to get his little life together and have a job and have a house and a family. Oh, Johnny's amazing now. He's a good citizen. He pays his taxes and his tithes. Johnny went from the projects to the suburbs. Johnny is a hero. In an Islamic country, you turn to Jesus, you could lose everything. Not gain everything. Here, you could gain everything. It's like you get your suds back, you get your nose hairs back, you get your money back, you get your health back, you get your mind back, and now you're back. But in some places, they make that same choice. They lose everything. And Jesus is still worth it, but this is the reality. So here, if people leave you because of your faith, that's all right. Let them go. Let them go. Why? What does he say? He says, because God has called us to peace. Listen, if someone does not want to live in peace with you, There's the door. You want to come in here and change? You're welcome. You want to come up here and stir trouble? You're not welcome here. Yeah. There's the door. This is a place of peace. We're going to protect the peace. If you're married, you cannot allow strife into your house. Strife and unresolved conflict. I'm telling you, you can live in peace. I don't know what your house is like. I have never screamed at my wife once. She has never screamed at me once. We have never went to sleep angry. We don't say abusive things to each other. I can't even remember a negative thing that she said to me. The only negative thing she said to me one time was, "Your breath smells." But that was another situation. That was a personal situation. But that's personal, and it was true. But you have to open up the lines of communication to be fully honest. If there is anything that you cannot say to your husband or your wife, that is, you are already in a dangerous place. I'm talking about in real life. I'm talking about during sex. I'm talking about, man, your food is not good. You're going to have to read some recipes. You're going to have to learn something. This house is a mess. You know, I don't like what you're doing with money. If you don't have full transparency, I'm telling you, you are not in a healthy place, number one. And number two, you are not in a mature place. The more mature you are, the more fully transparent you can be. And if you cannot speak 100% honest, and I'm saying this in a private and respectable way, then you are not in a healthy place and you are not in a mature place. And you have to realize that your ministry will only be as strong as your marriage. Your ministry will never be stronger than your marriage, because to the Lord, your marriage is the thing that qualifies you for ministry. Now, if you're single, this is not your marriage to the Lord, your covenant with the Lord and how you walk before the Lord. That is the thing. But see, that is the foundation of our marriage. Right? Us walking with the Lord. But then the foundation of the ministry is, how is the marriage? Right. I used to travel all the time, sometimes 4 times a month. And I would sit there and listen and look at a pastor and look at him talk and watch his wife. And his wife couldn't wait till he shuts up. And I go, yep. I'll tell you what's wrong right there. There's a communication issue. There's a respect issue, a love issue, and a sex issue. And if they don't fix that, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. Also, too, I'm going to say something too. Your sex will never be better than your communication. And so there's a lot of things that flow. This is real. This is not. Listen, this is not. You already heard. These guys were. He got the shoebox. So this is not. This is not fake here. This is real stuff. Okay. For how do you know, O wife, whether you will save your husband, or how do you know, O husband, whether you will save your wife? But has God distributed to each one as the Lord has called each one? Let him walk, so I ordain in all the churches. In other words, if you get married, stay married, try to keep the marriage, try to nurture the marriage, even if they are unbeliever. Okay. Was anyone called while circumcised? Let him not become uncircumcised. Was anyone called while circumcised? Let him not be circumcised. Circumcision is nothing and uncircumcision is nothing, but keeping the commandment of God is what matters. They're talking about this because in the early church, they were propagating, the Judaizers were basically saying that you have to become Jewish to become Christian, to become a believer. And Paul is actually saying that's not the case. The reason that he had Timothy do that is so that Timothy could minister with him in synagogues. So Paul was using his half Jewishness as something of an inroad to the synagogue to minister. So he was willing to be cut. But you know what? Can I tell you something? If you're not willing to be cut, you're not willing to minister. Mm-hmm. See, and that's what ministry is. What did Joshua do? Joshua circumcised all of the men before they went into the promised land. You know who's supposed to circumcise people? Fathers. You know what happens when fathers don't circumcise? pastors and leaders have to circumcise people. And I'm not talking about like literally. I'm talking about they have to deal with the issues in your heart that your father was supposed to deal with. That's the result. And so this is, he's saying, so if you're uncircumcised, that's all right. Go ahead and stay that way. If you're circumcised, go ahead and stay that way. Like, remain how you are. That's not what matters. What matters is obedience to God. Let's continue. Let each one remain in the same calling in which he was called. Were you called with a slave? Do not be concerned about it, but if you can be made free, rather use it. For he who is called is in the Lord, while a slave is the Lord's freedman. Okay. What this means is, this is not, the Bible, let me just say one thing. The Bible is not pro-slavery. So anyone who says that the Bible is pro-slavery, and anyone who used the Bible to justify any form of slavery, is not handling the scriptures correctly. God freed 3 million slaves in one day. Paul uses his apostolic authority and influence to help Onesimus be received as a brother, not a slave. So I just want to just say that. But what he's talking about here is, if you're a slave, do not be preoccupied with becoming free. Here Paul is addressing, watch what he addresses next. He says, for he who is called in the Lord while a slave is the Lord's freedman, which means your situation doesn't define you. Your relationship with the Lord defines you. Now watch what he says. He says this, likewise, he who is called while free is Christ's slave. So in the kingdom, you are not defined by your situation or your circumstances. You are defined by your relationship to Jesus. So if you're a slave, you're Christ's free man. And if you're free, you're Christ's slave. See that? Paul takes every relationship and crucifies it and makes it Christ-centered. So the marriage relationship is a relationship where the cross should be visible in honoring and in preferring one another. So if the husband lives with sacrificial love, it's easy to submit to someone who always has your best interests in mind. It's easy to live transparently with someone whose life's mission is to help you. I've never even had to mention the word submit to my wife.
Why don't you guys start cleaning up? Because if the food
if I do it, it's a joke.
we're done,
I've never had to ever once pull that card, because if you're leading and you're taking the place that God gave you, that's unspoken. And as you mature in your love for one another, the love should grow to such a place where you shouldn't even have to verbalize what you need. It should be seen. I don't have to ask for breakfast. I don't have to ask for dinner. You know, she already knows. When you grow together in love, you should know. It's like this, a good waiter. If you ever eat at a good restaurant, they will not allow your drink to become empty. They will look, they're like 10 feet out, like predators, apex predators, looking so that they can come hit you with another bottle of Pellegrino. Boom! $26 for a little bottle of water. But the point is that I should not have to ask. I should not have to ask for it. If I have to ask for it, we already have a communication issue. Why? Communication doesn't start with talking. Communication starts with listening. Communication starts with observing. For example, if you have to ask your wife what she wants for Christmas, you probably aren't listening. Or you're ignoring it. Or you don't care. But the point is that if you are listening, that's an expression of love. The Bible starts with, when it says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength." You know what he starts with saying? Hear. Love starts with listening. The best communicators are not people that can talk all day. The best communicators are people that can listen. And that was really hard for me. Now, I was like, listen, I got something. You don't even got nothing to say. I don't want to listen to you. I got something to say. You know, you don't even know what the heck you're saying. It's not easy to listen, but that's important. Okay. Brethren, let each one remain with God in that state in which he was called. Now concerning virgins, I have no commandment from the Lord, yet I give judgment as one whom the Lord in his mercy made trustworthy. So he's saying, do you hear what he's saying here? Paul is saying that sexually and ethically he is trustworthy. He says that he's saying that he has power over his sexuality. If you want to be an instrument of the Lord, whether you're married or whether you're single, you better get a hold of self-control. You better let self-control get a hold of you. You have to learn how to possess your vessel for honor, because the more the Lord promotes you, the more people will want to have sex with you. I have to watch out. You may say, well, you're not that cute and this and that. I have to watch out. I catch ladies looking at me. I'm like, whoa. And I'm like, I didn't come for that. 20 years ago I would have came for it. But I said, no, I'm not, because they're not used to a man that doesn't sound like a girl. I told Brett, I said, Brett, you got to be careful. In that suit, with that watch on, they be checking you out. You get little muscles and stuff. You got to watch out, because they're not used to this, man. You say, hey, I got my nails painted. Hey, I want to be your friend. And it's when a man walks in, they're like, oh, all right. You got to watch out. Now it's not a game. Now you got to really, like that used to flatter you back in the day. Now that'll mess you up. That'll find you. So you have to really have guard, because the society is so broken that there's a deficiency in men. So that means if you're a real man and you walk in like, okay, a man walked in the room, people are like, all right. And you have to be careful, because that will bring, and the more favors on your life, people want favor. When people see, they look, okay, he looks good, he's smelling good, I smell that oud. He's looking all right today. He smells like the hedge fund over here. Roshan always smells like a hedge fund. He smells, people are like, oh, okay, you have to be careful. You have to, and don't think it can't happen to you. Huh. That's why I don't put myself in a position. I don't meet with women alone, because I'm not gay. Listen, no, you have to have a pride. I value my relationship with Jesus first, my relationship with my wife second, and my relationship to my children, because I'm not going to bring shame on my children. I'm not going to do that. Not for some nasty chick. All right, now, I suppose, therefore, that this is good because of the present distress, that it is good for a man to remain as he is. Are you bound to a wife? Do not seek to be loosed. Are you loose from a wife? Do not seek a wife. Stop seeking. If you seek the wrong thing, you're going to find the wrong thing. The key in your life to everything that matters is you seek the Lord. If you seek a wife, you're not going to find a good wife. Because a good wife ain't going to be seeking you. She's going to be seeking the Lord. And then you see her, and you see, okay, there's something different about her, and then you pursue her. You should pursue her. But if you're seeking, no, that's not. And if you found a wife like that, God bless you. I hope it works out. I'm not against online stuff. I understand the culture that we're living in. But if you are actively searching, usually that's not a good sign. Okay, but even if you do marry, you have not sinned. And if a virgin marries, she has not sinned. Nevertheless, such will have trouble in the flesh, but I would spare you. He's saying that if you get married, you are going to have trouble in your flesh. Why? Because marriage is a commitment. Okay? This is a part of marriage leads to family. Family is beautiful. Family will trouble your flesh. Children. When I married my wife, she said this, earlier. When I married my wife, I realized I'm a selfish person. I go, how? I haven't had sex in like 6 years. I'm holy. I thought I was, I was like a champ. I was ready to take the world on. I was ready, And I felt holy, man. I was holy. I was not playing no games with no demons. I was not looking at nasty stuff. I was holy. I'm not playing. And so I think I'm good and stuff. I come into marriage like, yeah. And I meet her. She's so nice and loving. I'm like, man, I'm a selfish person. I had our first kid. I was like, man, I'm really selfish. Then that really exposes you. Children really will expose you. And then by the second child, I'm getting better. And the third child, I'm almost bearable. And I'm like, and the whole time, she's just like, no problems. No drama, like no fighting. I'm like, wow. Like if I don't start a fight with her, there's no fight. But that's what God wants. That's peace. That's peace. That's what God wants in your home. Not contentiousness and strife. Not competition. Not striving. How can I use my strengths to be a blessing to her? How can she use her talents to be a blessing to me? How can we together serve the purposes of God? I'll call her and say, how can I make your life better today? She'll say, what can I do for you today? This is a self-giving love. So if I come for what I can take, there'll never be enough. But if I can come for what I can give, there'll always be enough. So you want to approach that. Okay, he's going to continue here. All right. Nevertheless, you will have trouble in the flesh, but I would spare you. But this I say, brethren, the time is short, so that from now on, even those who have wives should be as though they have none. Listen to this carefully. Those who weep as though they did not weep. Those who rejoice as though they did not rejoice. Those who buy as though they did not possess. And those who use this world as not misusing it. Listen to this. This is important. For the form of this world, cosmos, is passing away. Here he's saying, if you're married, live like you're not married. What does that mean? He's not talking about don't be accountable. He's not talking about don't be loving. He's saying do not allow the marriage to preoccupy you from God being first. When God is first, I have what I need for the marriage. When God is not first, I don't have what I need for the marriage. Okay. He says possess as though you don't possess. What does that mean? Do not allow your possessions to possess you. Possess them. Weep as if you're not weeping. Rejoice as if you're not rejoicing. What this means is, it's not talking about being emotionally numb. It's saying, do not let sadness or happiness overtake you and cause you to be preoccupied. The same thing he says of, if you're a slave, don't seek freedom. And if you're free, know you're Christ's slave. What is he doing? Paul takes everything, and he Christ centers it, because if you don't find your center in him, it will be off balance, it will be out of whack, it will be off kilter. And if this is the problem when Jesus isn't first. When Jesus isn't first, the marriage is going to have problems. When Jesus isn't first, the money there's going to be problems. So this is something that you have to get a hold of. Okay. But I want you to be without care. He who is unmarried cares for the things of the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he who is married cares about the things of the world and how he may please his wife. Let me say this to you. If I live to please her, it's just not going to work. If she lives to please me, it's not going to work. One of the things that we discovered when we first got married is that we made a statement up together called Build a Bridge. Remember that? And Build a Bridge was get over it. This is what I said. This is what I meant. You got to get over it. We have to open up the lines of communication to be fully vulnerable and fully transparent, or else we're going to have a problem. You will have a problem. And so we are not living to please each other. We are living to please the Lord. So if you think that I exist to just make your life better, you're just sadly mistaken. Yeah. And if I think that your sole reason to exist is to make my life better, we're sadly mistaken. Because then we're making it about us and not about him. So then the marriage is first, not God, which is out of whack. Yeah. But if God is first, God will provide us with what we need for the marriage. So now when we're living to please the Lord, our focus is not each other, our focus is the Lord, but it's easier to get along with one another when you're focused on what needs to be focused on. This is a very, very important principle, and this will save you just a world of grief. Okay. There is a difference between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman cares about the things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she who marries cares about the things of the world, how she may please her husband. And I say, for your own profit, not that I may put a leash on you, but for what is proper, and that you may serve the Lord without distraction. So he's saying, if you have the ability to be single, be celibate, and be holy, then you can serve the Lord without distraction. But here's the thing. Number one, not everyone can hear that. Number two, not everyone should hear that. Number three, the original intention of God was that people would be fruitful and multiply. Yeah. So again, unless you're in Afghanistan, Pakistan, or some other stand, advancing the gospel and getting yourself martyred, you need to get yourself married. So if you're not going to get martyred, you need to get married. You need to seriously either get married or get martyred, and if you're really blessed, you get both. But you don't really. This is as they were saying, that marriage is an instrument in your life. It is a sanctifying instrument in your life. This is something that will really, really hit you. What do the people who know you best say about you? You want to hear? You want to have a troubling statement? Let me trouble you before lunch. I'm not going to trouble you after lunch. Since I'm not preaching tomorrow, I'm going to trouble you today. Would you like to have one of the most sobering thoughts of your life? Here's something to marinate on. Imagine if you died tomorrow, and Jesus of Nazareth himself did your eulogy. No fluff, no feelings, no Johnny's in a better place. Now Johnny's an angel. He was a demon his whole life, and now he's an angel. No fluff, no feelings, only truth. Imagine if Jesus of Nazareth did your eulogy. See, what do the people who know you best say about you and see about you? This starts with your wife. That's why when I'm sitting there looking at the pastor's wife, going, with her fake eyelashes, popping out, about to pop off. Like, when is this idiot going to shut up? I go, oh, buddy, that's a problem. That's a real problem. They're going to have a major issue going forward if they don't clear that up. And then, what do your children, when your son looks into your eyes, what does he see? Does he see weakness, tiredness, sensitivity? Or does he see solidness and like, you're gonna see, they will, you can't hide it. They'll speak and you'll hear it. And it'll either be a testimony or it'll be like, no, it's time to make some serious changes. Okay. But if any man thinks he is behaving improperly toward his virgin, if she has passed the flower of her youth, and thus it must be, let him do what he wishes. He does not sin, let him marry. So, in other words, if you're past your prime, if you're past childbearing age, right, you can still get married. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I'm very pro-marriage. I think it's very good. I think God's original intent of it's not good for man to be alone, I think that there's nothing more profound on the matter than that. And unless, again, you're getting martyred, you need to be married. All right. Nevertheless, he who stands steadfast in his heart, having no necessity, but has power over his own will, and so determined in his heart, he will keep his virgin does well. So then, he who gives her in marriage does well, but he who does not give her in marriage does well. Here comes 39. A wife is bound by law as long as her husband lives. But if the husband dies, she is at liberty to be married to whom she wishes, only in the Lord. So if there's infidelity, that's a clause to get out of a marriage. Personally, I'm going to tell you this. When people come to me, I'm like, you should just get divorced. Like, if there's been infidelity, 8 out of 10 times, I'm like, just get divorced. Because, especially when it's with a woman. Because it's emotional. If you get caught in your sin and you confess, and you're the one who acknowledges it, and you want restoration, and there's real repentance, good. But if you're just repetitively cheating on someone, and you come to me, I'm going to tell you, you have a clause, get out. I actually told someone this the other day, you're torturing yourself. Get out. If I was you, I'd get out. And people are like, oh my God, how can you say that? Listen, I'm too old, I don't play games. If Jesus himself is giving me an out, I'm out. I'm out. And you can do forgiveness and stuff, but there comes a point where if you don't value yourself, you'll sign up for abuse. And you do not deserve to be abused. You know, withholding sex is actually a form of abuse. That's a form of manipulation when you're married. That's another whole story. Okay. A wife is bound by law as long as her husband lives, but if her husband dies, she is at liberty to marry. But he says, whom she wishes, but only in the Lord. So do not be unequally yoked. If you're already married to someone who's not in Christ, pray for them, live an example before them, but don't sign up for stupid. Okay, but she is happier if she remains as she is. According to my judgment, I think I also have the Spirit of God. So he's saying that you'll be happier if you just seek the Lord and you're not preoccupied with marriage. Now let me read Peter. I think that we're going way later than normal, but anyway. This is 1 Peter 1:3. It says, wives, likewise, be submissive to your own husbands. That means that you don't have to be submitted to every other man. That's not, that shows that a man over woman dominance is not of God. Amen. Any man that has to talk about submission is a weak guy, and he doesn't probably deserve to be submitted to anyway. That's because if you have to pull that card, then there's something that she doesn't respect about you. So you want to rectify that. If it's hard for you to move the engine, it's hard for you to move the train, you better check out why. Because instead of saying, well, you need to submit, why is it that she doesn't want to follow you? What about you is not worth following? I would rectify that first before I start saying submit and do all this. Anyway, that was free advice. Wives, likewise, be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they may without a word may be won by the conduct of their wife. So her behavior is supposed to show what she really believes. Yeah. What happens usually is a woman marries someone and she becomes his mommy. Yeah. Which, that will break down the attraction. And that will ruin the marriage. Because he didn't want to marry his mom. He wanted to marry you. But now you've become his mom because you've married someone that is irresponsible. Let me tell you what a marriage is headed for trouble. A marriage is headed for trouble when the wife takes on the role of a mother. Your mother, when you're young, she nurtures you in the right direction. She disciplines you. Okay, son, it's time to do this. If your wife is the one telling you, we got to go to church, we got to pray, and we got to read the Bible, your marriage is already in trouble. Is already in trouble. If you don't rectify that, your marriage won't last. Because she will not respect you, and you will lose attraction for her, and the marriage will be over. Yep. Weak men, that will, outside of a miracle, it ain't going to work. And I pray a miracle, but it'd be better to rectify that. Anyway. And then let's say you bring children into that. Now children are watching their mother be their father's spiritual mom. You know what that is to the boys? That's emasculating to the boys. That's not a good thing. Okay. Do not let, watch this. When they observe your chaste conduct accompanied by fear, do not let your adornment be merely outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, or putting fine apparel. Rather, let it be the hidden person of the heart with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, for which is very precious in the sight of God. That's what my wife has. That's what I was mostly attracted to her. First I saw her, she looked cute. She was covered up, which is good. And she was playing the instrument. But that spirit, you know what it says about a quiet and gentle spirit? That doesn't mean you lose your personality. That doesn't mean you lose yourself. That doesn't mean you lose your uniqueness. That doesn't mean anything like that. It means that you have a Christ-centered femininity, if that's the right word. That means that you are meek, you are quiet, but it doesn't mean you don't have a personality. It doesn't mean you're not unique. It means that you are self-controlled. This is important for men and women. If a woman cannot control her mouth, the man will probably have a sex problem. All right, let me shut up. Let me shut up now. Okay. Rather let it be hidden person of the heart with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God. You know what precious means here? It is very expensive. It's very costly. Self-control will cost you something. It will cost you something. There will be a sacrifice that is temporary for something eternal to take place. There's always a cost involved in moving the needle forward for the kingdom. I'll give you an example. I was praying, Sarah brought to my attention, she said, Zoe wants to do this dance class thing. I'm like, great. It's the worst time on the worst day for me. Worst. It is Wednesday, what time? 3 o'clock. Coming back out of traffic, the worst time. I have service at night, I have to train, I have homeschool all day, I have church, and then podcasting. And what it required was a sacrifice. And I'm peopled out. I'm like... And it requires a sacrifice. But from the sacrifice, now you'll see Zoe dancing in a way that she was not dancing before. But that came forth from us being willing to make a sacrifice. What did you do that day when I was gone, stuck in Haiti? Where did you drive? Explain that. Come over here for a second. I'm going to give her the mic in a minute. Not yet. Just say this over by me. Come over here. What did you have to do so that little dancing thing can happen? No, I want you to hear this because this is real life. This requires sacrifice. Go ahead.
I had to take a half day off of work.
Okay.
And then I drove down to exit 7A on the turnpike.
Okay.
No, 7. Sorry.
7.
A little further. Exit 7 to the turnpike, drove her all the way up. Actually, went to go pick up your sneakers at the mall. And,
Louis. I got the picture too.
We had to go to Garden State Plaza and then from there go all the way out to Wayne, is it?
Yeah.
It's around the Wayne area.
Wayne.
Then after that, I had to drive her all the way back to exit 7 so they can go back to my parents.
And then where did you come?
And then go home and then go to work the next day.
And you had church, right?
No, we didn't. Remember, it was canceled for the funeral.
Oh, Lord gave you a break.
Lord gave me a break. Well,
Love you. Why am I saying that? I'm saying that because simply, when you're doing family, when you're doing marriage, when you're doing parenting, when you're doing ministry, it requires a sacrifice. Yeah. We get stuck in Haiti. That's 2 days, that's $2,000. It requires a sacrifice. If you think that let me say one thing to you. If you think that you're going to live a life of significance without sacrifice, you are sadly mistaken. I told some of our people, and I told you guys yesterday, I spent 15 years in full-time ministry before I made my salary once. Once. So yeah. So if you think that someone handing us a $900 check or a $10,000 check is some sort of overnight thing, if someone came and handed me $250,000, it would be like a drop in the bucket for what we put in. Because it's not about that. We put our life in this. We don't care. Jesus is worth it. But I'm telling you, if you think that you're going to live a life of significance without sacrifice, you're sadly mistaken. I mean, it's not real. So I don't know who you're listening to, but it's not me, because this is no joke here. Okay. For in this manner, in former times, holy women who trusted in God also adorned themselves, being submissive to their own husbands, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are, if you do good. Say if. So, okay, if you do good and are not afraid with any terror. Husbands likewise dwell with them with understanding, or according to knowledge, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life. Listen to this, that your prayers may not be hindered. Let's continue. Finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion one for another. Do you see when he's talking about compassion? It's in the context of a husband and a wife. I have to see my wife through the sacrifices that she's making. She sees me through the sacrifices that I'm making. We are seeing each other through what we're willing to do for the kingdom. So compassion is not just for some, African kid or some Haitian kid in a shack. Compassion is for one another. Do you see your spouse through the eyes of compassion? See, it's not hard to cook for someone when you have compassion for them. It's not hard to clean up when you have compassion. It's not hard to help with the dishes when you have compassion. When you have compassion, compassion naturally flows. So if things are not flowing, it could be a compassion issue. It could be maybe this was never modeled for you, so you don't know how to do it. But now we have the scriptures teaching us, we have the Spirit indwelling us, we have the Father instructing us, and now we have a family of people who are starting to address real life stuff. Your home should be the happiest, most life-giving place in the world. Okay. Husbands likewise dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel. So it's talking about weaker. It's a physical word, and it's talking about in an agricultural society, men were out in the field. Right? So this is the word weaker is a fascinating word. It's actually the word that's used for sick. So that's saying that, let's practicalize that. Men, take out the garbage. Men, be there, do that role. I don't know if you know this, but the Bible actually clearly teaches there's two genders, male and female, not 400. And the Bible clearly teaches gender roles. The gender roles are not oppressive. Gender roles are actually freeing. Actually, I cannot breastfeed my children. Sometimes I'm breastfeeding adults. That's what pastoring is like. It's like breastfeeding a grown man. But in reality, she's the nurturer. So this is what's powerful about women. This is why women are powerful in the ministry. Women detect anything that is contrary to nurture. Women detect when someone is not safe. In the kingdom, do you know the most dangerous people are the people who are safe? You hear what I just said? In the kingdom, the most dangerous people are people who are safe. Safe meaning trustworthy. All right, we got to get out of this. Finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion one for another. Love as brothers, be tenderhearted, be courteous. You know that being courteous, that's a form of compassion. Being thoughtful of others. When you're self-absorbed, you go, oh, I didn't think that. I didn't see that. I didn't know that. I know, because you're focused on yourself. When you're courteous, you are someone who is able to see the needs of someone else. Do you know what this is talking about? This is talking about in the context of husbands and wives. I'll brag about someone for a second because they're here. You know who's a very, very courteous young lady? Sorabel. One of the most thoughtful people, and she's young. I don't know how young you're, really young. And how old? 24. I thought I was going to be Benny Hinn when I was 24. That was a disaster. Jose and I are eating. She's not even in the restaurant. She pays for us. That's not just about money. That's about, there's something at work in her. See? Yeah. Courteous. Not rendering evil for evil or reveling for reveling, but on the contrary, blessing. Blessing those who curse you. Knowing that we are called to this, watch this, that you may inherit a blessing. So I don't know about you, but I'm into inheriting a blessing. Yeah. A blessing means that I didn't work for it. The other day we were having a prayer meeting. We had 2 prayer meetings. We have multiple prayer meetings every day. It's true. So the first prayer meeting was after Zoe. This is what Zoe cooks everyone breakfast. So me and her brothers pray for her. We say, Lord, bless Zoe for her servant's heart in cooking us breakfast. She legitimately cooked us pancakes. And so I have a pastor's wife text me, and she goes, how can I bless Zoe? Out of the blue. How can I bless Zoe? The next day, we're praying. And I'm frustrated, I'll tell you the truth. We start school late. I woke up late. I woke up like in a fog. I was tired. I come upstairs. I'm frustrated. We're late. I got all this school pressure and stuff. And I'm just like, I'm not doing the pressure thing. I'm going to get a bagel. This schoolwork will be here. It's not going nowhere. And so we pray. While we're praying, literally while we're praying, someone comes and delivers a box, 2 candles for Sarah's feelings, and a $900 gift just for us. Just an happy anniversary. Here's just $900 for you guys. Do whatever you want with it. It's a personal gift. While we were praying. See, it's not just about $900. It's about while you are seeking the kingdom, God is responding to you. While Zoe is serving, being courteous, being kind, being generous, people say, how can I bless her? And the Lord has been speaking to me a lot recently about fragrance. Then people send us custom-made, handmade, made in New Jersey, poured in New Jersey. You know that a lot of the candles are poison, right? Yeah. You know that you go and get that candle in the mall, that's poison. These are handmade candles. There's no poison in them. And they smell great. I hijacked one from you. But see, the Lord was speaking to me about fragrance. And then a new fragrance came. 2. The only ones that she didn't buy came. So that's, God, listen to me. God is concerned about your life. 2 things. Last thing. 1, He does not want your prayers to be hindered. If there's strife in your marriage, your prayers will be hindered. Is that true? Okay, number 1. Number 2, if you want to inherit a blessing, you have to live the blessing. Compassionate, kind, not rendering evil for evil, but blessing people, and so that you can inherit a blessing. So I don't know if you know this, but let's just say, this is the thing that people don't realize. Let's just say you curse me, but I don't know about it. But then I find out, oh, this is someone saying something negative about me. So I say, you know what, Lord? Bless them. Yeah. Once I forgive you, once I bless you, I now position myself to inherit a blessing. Yeah. And what the enemy meant for evil, God turned for my good. So you're using your mouth against me. I'm using my mouth for you. But at the end of the day, it's going to bless me. So if someone speaks ill of me, I just bless them. I pray for them. I don't care, because their opinion of me is not my opinion of me anyway. I don't live from your opinion of me. So this is kingdom life. So if you don't want your prayers to be hindered, right? There's a certain way that we have to live together, dwell together. Now think of this. Let's just talk practically. Imagine you come into a church, there's 25 families. There's peace in all the homes. There, everybody's having sex with each other. I'm not talking about like the whole church. I'm talking about there's churches like that too. But we're not that type of church. I'm talking about the sex life and the marriages are good. The kids are happy. You know what Zoe will say to me? She'll come up to us and she'll be like, kiss mom, kiss dad. You know why? Because that makes her feel safe and warm when there is affection in the house. If your house is a cold potato house, see, imagine if the communication is good. Imagine if the sex life is healthy and vibrant. You should still be pursuing each other. Yeah. And let me say something. Women, men don't always want to be the one that initiates sex. Just to let you know that, ladies. Because that's something, I'm talking to married ladies here. So they'll be. But you know what I'm saying? Like, this is, we don't always want to have to ask. You have to pursue each other. This is important. Anyway. This is my last thing, and then we're going to have lunch. We went way over. It's usually my fault. But you get a break from me tomorrow, don't worry. When Adam was in trouble? Adam and Abraham were Abram before he became Abraham. Because, see, it was Abram that gave birth to Ishmael. The flesh, not the promise. They were in trouble when they weren't leading. When a man is not leading, trouble. She was not supposed to be telling him what to eat. God never told her nothing. God told him. That's why when she ate and then he ate, God said, Adam, where are you? Paul said that sin came through one man. What does that mean? That means that God will always speak to the one that he's going to hold responsible. So when Sarah was like, hey, you know what? I got a bondservant. Her name is Hagar. She's younger. Why don't you have at it? What is Abram going to say? No? He's going to be like, you ain't mad? All right. So what did he do? He did what most men would have did in those times. He had at it. And guess what happened? Ishmael. Lust cannot give birth to the promise. But he listened to her. He should not have listened to her. He should have been leading. I'm not saying, you better hear this carefully, I'm not saying that you should not listen to your wife when she's speaking from the Lord. But when she's speaking, she should be speaking what is according to God's word. So that she is a true azer or a true helper or a true nurturer. So she is encouraging and supporting what God says, not saying what she wants. If you listen to the voice of what your wife wants, you will live to please your wife and not the Lord, and you will not please the Lord, and you will not please your wife, and you will feel like a weak, emasculated man who's living for the feelings of your wife. My wife and I, she knows this, happiness is an inside job, and it's not my job to manage her feelings. if you have to manage the other person's feelings, they need to get healed, they need to get healthy, they need to get whole, so that you can open up the lines of conversation and have real dialogue and address the real issues in life that people dance around, that they don't address, and they don't live in full transparency and real intimacy. They don't address the real things that are hindering them from serving God together. They don't address the real concerns, and the conversation is, when's our next vacation? And so the plan is always, let's escape from our life for a week instead of build the life that we want. And then the whole goal is a vacation, and you don't even get rest from a vacation. You're tired after a vacation. Instead of focusing on, let's deal with the real stuff in our life that is hindering us from really going after the purposes of God for our family. Let's get whole and healthy so we can go after this thing.